All right, welcome back everyone to Collective Intelligence Block Party number 22. This is our 22nd block party, which means we've surpassed the 500-hour mark. We've done over 500 hours of block party since we started on Valentine's Day this year. All righty, and now we are kicking off the segment called Vegans of Color, led by my sister Jackie and my brother Melvin. And with that, take it away, Jackie.
Hello. Thank you, Jamin, and thank you everyone for joining us again this week on the 22nd block party. It's amazing. We've cultivated this space where we consider ourselves family, and we come together in conversation, real conversation, raw conversation, vulnerable conversation, but loving conversation to facilitate all healing on the planet and save all life on Earth. And we come from different perspectives. And Melvin and I, as colleagues and brother and sister have come together. We really felt that our voices, our perspective of veganism and consciousness was really needed a voice, especially with the social climate right now. And we've been meeting and we've had some great conversations, and we thought it was time that we invite members of the community that represent the healing that they are gifting the communities. And what that looks like and how we can reflect our voice and our intentions out into the ethers and into the collective consciousness. So I want to invite Melvin to introduce our guest. He met him, and I agree with him that he is an amazing human being, and we really want to highlight the work and his intention in the world. So Melvin, could you please do the honors and invite our introduce our guest?
Okay, thank you everyone for joining us once again for our 22nd block party. And I have the honor of introducing to you Brother Kawisi. I met Brother Kawisi through another friend of mine because I have an interest in healing and furthering the healing of my own body and my consciousness. And I met this brother at the garden where I do, we work at a garden growing food and also doing volunteer work. And he said, I asked him, what else was he doing? He said he drummed. And I said, what else? And he told me he was in a martial arts. And I said, well, man, I've been wanting to be introduced to that. So he invited me to a meeting at Kiwanis Park here in Tempe, and I went there.
Melvin, brother, breaking up a bit. Kind of frozen at the moment.
Yeah, it looks like our guest dropped also, and we lost Melvin. Can we pause recording?
Hey, welcome everybody to our 22nd 24-hour block party. And today I have the honor of introducing to you a very humble brother that I met recently. I just met him recently, and I met him through another friend of mine who we work together at Open Spaces. It is it's a community garden. It's a huge community garden where people go and grow food. And I asked Brother Ben, he was telling me about that what he do with the drumming and the martial arts. So I told him I was interested in that, and he invited me there. So I went last Saturday to Kiwanis Park, and I met Brother Kawisi and some other members of some other people that he's teaching. And I was immediately I was drawn into the spirit there in that environment, in his methodology of teaching. And then when he started explaining to me the geometry, that everything that he was doing was geometrically and from a very a holistic approach, I said, this is something that I'm really interested in. So, but I didn't know anything about the brother's background until I saw his resume, and it's quite impressive. But even what's more impressive than his resume is his spirit. So without any further ado, I would like for Brother Kawesi to speak to you, and he can tell you more about himself. And we would like, if you will, to share your journey into the living a healthy lifestyle, veganism, and also into the martial arts. And then I do have some specific questions that I want to ask you about the practice of the martial art. But if you will, you got it.
Thank you so much, Brother Melvin. It seems like we're kindred spirit, you know. We recently met, but it's like we have known each other for a long time. Greetings, everyone. My name is Rohan Williams, and Brother Melvin also called me by the name of Kwesi. Kwesi is a name that I adopted when I went to Ghana around the year 2000, and it means a male that's born on Sunday. In Ghana, in the African culture of Ghana, a baby at birth is given a name based on the day of the week that they are born. And so Kwesi simply means a male born on Sunday. I was born in Jamaica and came to the United States in 1981, visited New York City, spent about 10 years there, finishing up my education, schooling, college, and got hired and came out to Phoenix, Arizona in 1990, where I spent the next 23 years as an electrical engineer with Motorola Freescale Semiconductor. In the late 1980s, however, was when my journey really began, because that's about the time that I transitioned from eating animal products. In the mid 1990s, I went from eating animal products, went from eating mostly cooked food to mostly raw food. And that's when I really began to see the drastic changes in the body as I really cleaned up my diet, cleansed my system, increased my water intake. I began to see my body actually getting younger and stronger, much more stronger than I was when I was in my 20s. And it really was surprising to me to see all of this changes happening in my body. I got stronger, I got healthier, I wasn't getting ill as often. Actually, I eliminated all my illnesses as far as I can tell. I'm currently not on medication or prescription medication. So I think I've done pretty good since the 1980s in terms of living a pretty healthy lifestyle. During that journey, I came across learning the martial arts in 2006 timeframe. And over that period till now, I've seen that the martial arts, going back to a natural diet, rounded out the culture of being in alignment with nature. And so, you know, in a short synopsis, that's 20-something years compressed in a couple of seconds.
Melvin, if it's okay with you, I would love to ask, what was the catalyst for you, being such a young gentleman, being, you know, successful in this world? You know, you have your degree, you're out working, you're an engineer. What led you to that shift in consciousness and led you to a more of a plant-based lifestyle?
Okay. The journey was about doing some historical studies. Back then, I was brought up in the religion of Christianity. and a small group and I decided to do some historical research on the denomination that I was involved with at the time. And as we dug into the history, we began to have come across a lot of information that has not been presented to the population at large. And as we delved in, we had questions, we started asking questions, and we weren't getting the answers, so we were dissatisfied with the answers that were coming back. And that friction between this group that was studying and the group that was not studying escalated to the point where we had to separate. As we separated, we began searching for places and people who could give us these answers. And so it was on that journey of, you know, leaving one area of religion and moving into another area and just meeting different people that we run across some really nice people who were actually doing raw foods. They taught us how to prepare raw apple pie, which is one of my favorites. How to eat wholesome meals without cooking. Making sure that you're combining the foods properly. You're separating your fruits from your vegetables, and learning how to eat the fruits in the correct combinations, because there are categories that fruits falls in. Fruit falls in the acidic, the subacids, the neutral, the sweet, and so on. So knowing how to combine those foods properly will create harmony as you eat them in the body. If not, if they're ill combined, instead of digesting, they actually putrefy and ferment and not be wholesome for your body. So there's a whole university I discovered of foods that existed out there. And so I had to take the time and the energy and many years of study to understand raw foods and how best to eat them, when to eat them. You know, for example, you want to do your fruits in the morning and your vegetables in the afternoon. So there's a whole university of knowledge out there on foods, and that really was how I got on my journey into raw foods.
Thank you. Can you share some of the information when you went on this here journey, this discovery that you came up on when you found things that didn't resonate well with you in the Christian religion, and then when you started your journey? Could you share with us some of your discovery that that inspired you to even go farther, to push farther into self-discovery and to into the lifestyle that you're into now, the way that you live?
Okay. That's a loaded question, Melvin.
Well,
so if you understand the historical context of how Africans ended up in the islands of Jamaica, we see as we go back through history, how the Spanish came into the African continent, or the Portuguese, enslaving and extracting our people from the continent of Africa. Majority of them were brought into the Americas through Brazil, Mexico, and some parts of the Caribbean, and eventually into the United States of America, what is now the United States of America. So in terms of the colonizers who had control of Jamaica, I'm not sure about the Portuguese, but at one point it was the Spanish at first, and then the British took over from them. And Jamaica is basically considered now a formerly British colony. We still have ties, the island still has ties to the crown. We have a governor general, which is a representative of the crown that is still is an official office on the island, even though we gained our independence in 1962. So the culture of Christianity and British culture is still a pretty dominant factor on the island of Jamaica. So we are pretty much brought up in that British system. The language that's spoken on Jamaica as the official language is English. You're educated in English, even though there's a native tongue of broken English that is spoken on the island between the locals. So that's how the Christianity as the religion, and Jamaica is a highly religious country at the moment. I think 1 in 9 is of a Christian religion, whether it be Catholicism, Seventh-day Adventism, Baptists, and so on. All these denominations do exist on the island. However, one of the other quote-unquote faction that exists on the island that was most rebellious is those that are considered to be Rastafarians. And many of these who are aligned in this group of people are the liberators of Jamaica. They represent, quote unquote, the voice of consciousness. You may have heard of Bob Marley and Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer. These were the guys in the 60s who revolutionized and brought reggae to the world. But before them, we had our national heroes who fought the British. In fact, there's a tribe from Ghana of the Ashanti people in Jamaica that are considered to, that are called the Maroons. And the Maroons are literally sovereign people on the island of Jamaica. They refused to be enslaved, and they fought the British, and had a treaty signed with the British where there is lands in Jamaica that is dedicated to these people and are sovereign lands. The influence, however, of Christianity is still one of the major mode of worship on the island. So as I did my study and started finding out more and more about church history that did not sit well with me, I also began to look into my African past, my ancestral history. And so on my journey, with the help of more learned people than I, some were actually seminary ministers, those who had gone to seminary school to get their degree, who had studied the language of Hebrew and Greek. We began to explore these original writings of the Bible in Hebrew, in Greek, and started to do the etymologies and using the concordances and the lexicons, and started breaking things apart. And much of what we found, we did not sit well with what we were finding. Eventually, I had to make a break, and the break came when one of the chiefs in Ghana passed away, and my sister called me up and says, "Hey, I'm going to Africa." And I said, "Well, none of my family is going to make it to Africa before I do, so if you're going to go, I'm coming." And so I took that trip with my sister and her family and went to Ghana. And even that to me was quite revealing, because I took it as an opportunity for me to go back into my culture and find original African culture. And though that does exist there, what I found in the city was pretty much neo-colonialistic Christianity, because all of Africa was also colonized by the Europeans. They cut it up like a Christmas cake. And so you had places where the French rule, where the British rule, where the Germans rule, where the Dutch rules, the Italians, and so on. And so we are all affected as Africans by the colonization that occurred on the continent. It was really, though, eye-opening. It was a time it was a somber time for me, a happy time, because I actually got to see the traditional way you laid a king in state for his burial. That tradition was intact. I saw, before we actually, a week or two before the funeral, I saw advertisement on the television where they use the talking drums to actually spell out the invitation to the whole country of Ghana, inviting everyone to come to the funeral of Osajifo Kuntum. And to see the elders play the talking drum and the caption flowing on the bottom of the television representing what was being beat on the talking drums was just mind-boggling to me. To actually be in funeral garbs of black cloth, 5 yards wrapped around me, wearing my sandals and participating in the culture of being adorned correctly to go watch the king laid out in state. That experience was just mind-boggling. It was so mind-boggling to me because when I entered the stateroom, a huge stateroom, and he was laid out in a bed in the center of the stateroom, I had a smile on my face because I did not expect to see such a sight, such a grandiose sight. And so the guards that were at the door came at me and started speaking in a language I didn't understand and in an angry way. And the young lady we went with started interpreting and says, well, you can't smile. You can't have a smile on your face because the king is dead. You got to be weeping and you got to be somber. And so even though I put that expression on my face, my mind was like, wow. Because the king was laid in state on his bed and he was covered with a golden blanket. His feet came out under the covers and the sandals he had on was gold. He had a golden nugget placed between his lips. And he had been dead for 3 months and there was no smell. So what science was I witnessing where they could preserve the body for 3 months? What wealth was I seeing before my eyes that I'm seeing for the first time in my life? His name was Asajifo Kuntunkununkum, which he got when he became a chief because his name was changed again, which means king of the green forest. So for a week, every day, limbs of trees was brought in. And at the end of the week, by the time you got into that stateroom, he was surrounded by limbs of trees. And that just blew my mind. I went outside, there was a tent with chairs where you could sit. And I just sat there and cried because it was a coming home moment for me. After 500 years of being separated from my homeland, here I am coming back to connect again with my traditional culture, traditions that lasted hundreds of years. And to see it intact was mind-boggling, was tearing, was a huge culmination for me. However, when I left Ghana, I realized I cannot look at Africa in its current state because of colonialism to find my true ancient African culture. And that's when the light bulb went off in my head and saying that I gotta go to Egypt. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of Dr. Yosef Ben Yakanan, is a Black historian who has been taking people to Egypt for 20 years by the time I heard of him in 1999, 2000. And so the following year, I booked my trip and I was on one of his very last trip to Egypt. And that in and of itself is a story in itself, you know, that my mind could only take 4 days of Egypt before I couldn't contain any more information. That's how much stuff is in Egypt. So that's part of my journey. That's some of the things I found. That's some of the things I was searching, I was looking, I wanted to find the original, the authentic stuff. And that's where I ended up.
Melvin, you're muted.
We've spoken about Kemet, and it's really a new concept for me. Can you explain to the audience about Kemet, what Kemet is, the historical significance of it?
Okay.
And then also what I would like, because you to share the foods that the food that was eaten, like that they ate in Ghana. Also that, and we was talking about this all here, like the amaret. It's an African food. Can you share what you know about the different foods that was eaten in Africa and places like Ghana and Egypt, that people are eating over here and not even aware that it's an African indigenous plant and the nutritional values of them?
Okay. The food in Ghana was incredible, to say the least. On the trip to Ghana, in the airport, though I could not speak the language that was mostly being spoken, which was the language called Twi, spelled Twi, the mannerism of the people was so similar to Jamaicans. I thought I was just sitting among Jamaicans, you know, a little bit more calmer, and I have to extend that, or aggressiveness in Jamaica is as a result of enslavement. But the people was just, I felt at home, at ease with these people. When I got to Ghana, the similarities of the fruits was just on point. You know, it was really, really surprising to see how close the variety of food was to what was grown locally in Jamaica. The mangoes, the bananas, the pineapples. Actually, in Jamaica, the pineapples can be sweet, but you can't eat too much of it before your throat begins to scratch or your tongue begin to swell a little bit. In Ghana, the pineapples were so good that I was eating 2 or 3 pineapples and would have eaten more, but I had to let people around who came on the trip have something to eat. We would drive on the roads, and you just see mounds of pineapples on the roadside, and the van would stop, we would open the door, and we wouldn't, in Jamaica, you'd look at pineapples, you smell them to get the sugar and so on. We would just take pineapples and throw in the van because they were all sweet. When I came back to the United States, I refused to eat pineapple because there was nothing compared in terms of taste. So the food was very similar. There's also another fruit, which is actually a part of the Jamaican national dish called the ackee, which is grown in Ghana also. The thing was, in Ghana, they did not eat that fruit. And it could be because the ackee cannot be picked before it opens up. It's a fruit that is closed and then opens up as it ripens. That opening up causes the arsenic inside there to escape. So if you pry it open, you can actually poison yourself by eating this fruit before it's time. And so I'm thinking that's one of the reasons why in Ghana, you'll see that the tree loaded with ackee fall into the ground, and we're like, wow, they don't eat it, you know? But in Jamaica, it's our national dish. So a lot of similarities with food. The Ghanaians, when they cook their roots, such as the cassava root, the yams, the yellow yams, the white yams, they would actually put it in a mortar and pound it. Okay, so they boil it, they put it in the mortar, they pound it. And as they're pounding, a person is pounding, a person is turning it over. So it's a rhythmic, they are moving to rhythm, you know, and person turns, pound, turns, pound. And then that is called, it can be made into a dish that they call fufu. There's another dish that they have. In Jamaica, we don't pound the roots. We just boil them and eat them like that. So that was different for me to see them doing that to food. But there was something that they call the dukunu, and it's the same word that we use in Jamaica. Now, Jamaica was used for growing sugar during slavery. So we had sugar to everything. So when we made dukunu in Jamaica, it was sweet. And so when I heard the word in Ghana, I'm like, I would love to try the dukunu, expecting sweet, but in Ghana, they did not sweeten it. So it was pretty bland to my taste buds. And I was like, oh, okay. So, but a favorite part of the entree over there. So there, in terms of food and similarities, it was almost one for one. In Jamaica, though, we have quite a few varieties of mangoes. It'd be easy for me to name off over 20 to 40 different varieties of mangoes, which many places do not have that much of a variety of mangoes. But in Jamaica, we have quite a bit of variety. So that's one thing I miss, because in June, July is actually the mango season. And usually this time of year, I'm in Jamaica because I want, you know, I like my mangoes. So the other part of your question was on Egypt and Kemet. Kemet is the old name that was used to refer to Egypt in the ancient days. Usually represented by three consonants, KMT. As I studied through history, and Dr. Yosef Ben Yachanan has written extensively on Kemet, we see that as we go back in time, as we study the dynastic periods of Egypt, that civilization hovered around the Nile River. And, you know, as we flew over Kemet from Cairo all the way down to Aswan, on both sides of the river, as you go further and further away, is extreme desert. But along the river, you would see agriculture, you would see green plants, you would see the people lived along the river. And so the Nile Valley it has quite a bit of historical significance in terms of the development of man and high culture. The people of Kemet left their history chiseled into the walls of the temples and the different archaeological structures that they built. Over time, some of those writings have been defaced or chiseled out or defaced, or noses blown away and so on. But still, you still can go back there and see original culture. You can see temples. You read in the Bible about the temple that Moses erected in the desert, the holy place, the outer court, the holy place, the most holy place. Well, you see that in stone in Kemet. You see the pillar temples, pillars that are so humongous. To circumnavigate a pillar, you would have to have 6 men holding hand to hand to make a circle around the pillar. That's how big a pillar is. Some of these temples had 12, some had 24 or 28, some had 48 pillars in the temple. The writings of hieroglyphics on the walls, the extensive knowledge that is literally there is almost unsurmountable, because after 4 days my brain was maxed out. I had a video camera, I took pictures of everything else. I'm like, one of these days I'm gonna have the time and the energy to go back and look it over. I still haven't been able to do that 20 years later, because it's so much information. As I sat on the plane and as we left Cairo, Egypt, I took a napkin and I wrote on the napkin and I said, everything that I've been taught has been a lie. And if I've been taught the truth, it's been taught to me from an incorrect perspective. And it was mind-boggling to see how much that of what I had been taught here in the Western world, in Jamaica, in the United States, that was blown out of the water by the artifacts that I was witnessing in Kemet. And so Kemet is, in my opinion, the high point of civilization that our ancestors were able to achieve before the invaders started coming in and destroying. And because of my diet, I asked question, how were they able to achieve all of this? They had to have a good diet. They had to have a clear mind. They had to have taken, family at home. Home is taken care of. There's no need for all the needs of food, clothing, and shelter, and security of the home. That's taken care of, because you need a sharp mind and body to achieve what they achieved in Kemet. The astrology, the astronomy, charting the movement of the heavens and the stars through the zodiac. These cycles are huge. Some of them last 26,000 years. That's multiple lifetimes of people. But they did it. They did it.
Could you shared that by, was it 2006 that you went into the martial arts?
Yes.
And what you were sharing with me, this is what really attracted me to your teachings and how you, your philosophy of the martial arts. You was tied into geometrical movements and also into male and female principles. Could you speak to that?
Sure. There are four basic macro components to culture. And actually what I'm going to share now is something that one of my elders shared with me that actually started my search, my research, my deep dive, my digging. He said to me, if you understand culture and the components of culture, everything on the planet will become transparently clear to you. Culture, four macro components consists of language, law, art. In Western culture, it's religion. In the ancient Eastern culture, it's ritual. So when I began my search into all aspects of culture, starting with the word definitions and the deep dive there into etymologies, I began to see clearly that the culture I'm in and operating in and was brought up in, this male-dominated culture, that the modus operandi, which is the core of those components, was based on war. And the culture that, and so it's male-dominated, it's based on war, and everything in all the aspects of human activity, which consists of about 9 areas, economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war, was at war with each other, at war with me. And so I wanted to find a counter culture where I was in harmony with that culture, where domination and control didn't exist, where I am free, where the freedom of choice exists. And as I look for a counterpart, I realized I got to go back in time, because it's almost impossible to find a culture like that today upon the planet. And as I studied Kemet, I realized that the principle of the female was very, very pronounced, and actually is still very pronounced in African cultures. Even in Ghana, though you may have a chief, a lot of decisions in the tribes in Ghana are actually made by the queen mother, because almost everything has to go by the queen mother. So when I formulated a counterculture, a framework, because that culture doesn't exist, but I needed a framework that I was gonna exist in, I realized that the modus operandi has to be the family. So the core of the culture that I now operate in consists of the elders, the mother, the father, and the child, and the security of that unit. So that's the counterculture that I operate in. Languages, thousands of languages in Africa to choose from if I choose, if I want to go specifically dive into language. Laws, there's always been, universal laws. Every culture recognizes them. Actually, everybody recognizes them. You know, everybody has to recognize gravity. That's a universal law. The laws of karma, what you do to others come back to you. In Africa, the laws that were actually held were communal laws, laws that made the community intact. Art, now that's the aspect that blew my mind. The component of art in Western culture, most art is things we hang on the walls, you know, so it's external from us. Architecture, you know, those things are external from the body. And you do have that in the African culture too. You know, they do their carvings. It was interesting to actually see carvings hung on the outside of the house and the inside of the house. You see masks that we would put on the inside of our house. They had it on the outside of the house too, you know, so those are some things that was really, really interesting to see. The woodwork, the garden lounges and chairs, the birthing chair, you know, the night watchman chair, which has a seat, you know, it's a piece of wood that's just laying at an angle and another piece inserted in the middle. But when the mother delivers a child, they take the piece out that is a seat and they put another piece in with two prongs, and that's where the baby comes through. So the mother is actually still sitting upright as she uses gravity in her deliverance of her child. But the other part of the art, which was fascinating to me, was that the art is a doing art. The yoga is a doing art. The Tai Chi is a doing art. The martial art is a doing art. The drumming is a doing art. The dance is a doing art. So literally, you become master of your craft in doing art. You literally become art. Clothing, you're wearing art. Food preparation is an art. So when you start looking at the culture from the perspective of art, you realize that everything is art. And it's in the doing of art that you do your culture. And one of the meanings of culture is worship. Another meaning is what you do with your time and energy. So when you're doing your culture, you're actually worshiping. So those are some of the fascinating things that came out in my investigation of those 4 components of culture. And embracing, you know, embracing doing it, because like the drumming, for example, is one of the first aspects of doing something in my culture that I took on. And I consider the drums my journey into African culture. Because in learning to play the drums and the traditional rhythms of the djembe, West African djembe, I began to learn when these rhythms are played, the meaning of these rhythms, you know, because the rituals, the center of the ritual aspect of the of culture is the drum and the dance. The drums were played at the birth of a child, at the different seasons of initiations, which occur every 7 years. When you get married, when there's a death, special occasion, when we're going to war, so on and so forth. The drums and the dance is central to the culture. The martial art that I do is based on the Kemetic yoga forms. There are 2 aspects to this martial art. It's based on, there's an aspect of it that is called the warrior style, which is very masculine and very physical. And there's the other aspect, which is the priest style. The pre-style is a complementary system between the masculine energy and the female feminine energy. What we find is that if you stay masculine as you get older, you begin to deteriorate your joints, your internal organs. And so it's best to practice from the pre-style as you get older. And instead of destroying your body, you're literally healing your body as you get older and get stronger. So that's the complementary systems of the masculine and the feminine. Still can protect you, but 99% of the people who do martial arts will never be in a fight. So we do it mostly to heal our bodies, knowing that if it comes down to protecting you, it's available.
Damon, did you have a question?
Oh, sure. Rohan, really loving your presentation. Thank you so much. Your stories just take us away. I mean, they just take us on a journey. You're just such a beautiful storyteller. So thank you for that.
Sure.
And I'm really fascinated about your quest for culture. And so you explored different cultures in Africa. Did you find the culture that you're saying, bingo, this is the one? Or was it more you're drawing elements from different cultures and essentially kind of, you know, for lack of a better word, rolling your own? You know, I mean, if you could just tell us a little bit more about that journey and exploration into culture.
Okay, good. No, what I found is that our ancestors left a legacy, left a heritage on their quests. You know, those who wanted to do constructive things in society, those who wanted to leave a heritage for their offsprings that was sustainable on the planet, because some of our legacies are not sustainable, right? That's why we have climate change issues. That's why we're polluting the air, the water, the earth. But those who, in our cultures, all cultures, they, in their lifetime, took their journey to their max potential. And so it's up to us to pick up that mantle and take it to the next level. So what I found was a lot of pieces that I loved and I'm attracted to, but now that only takes me to a point. And I now have to build on that to get to a higher level of finding one's perfection, I guess, something like that.
Yeah, thank you. If you don't mind, and see, culture is something we take very seriously here. We don't pretend that we've got it all figured out or anything like that. But we are students of culture, but we're also in a way co-creating a new culture right here in this Zoom room. Right, a new medium, of course, lends itself to a new culture. Right. When our ancestors had to go up to the snowy north, you know, they had a whole new culture around snow and around family and all kinds of stuff, what they ate and everything. So, and in a way, I see the exercise of co-creating a new culture here as number one, just rich with possibility, because I don't know the extent to which Brother Melvin shared with you about, or Sister Jackie, about really the network that we're creating here. It's a network of conversations, right? And it's all interconnected. So, you know, the idea being that, see, right now, Rohan, you're needed right here. And we're all just grooving, right? Now, it could be that a couple hours from now, right, there might be some conflict that's going on, say in Chicago or something like that, heaven forbid. And you get a message on your phone, you know, hey, you're needed here because you have a certain mix of skills, which, not that you're just going to go there alone, go there via Zoom, of course, right? But not that you're going to go there alone. You might be meeting there with, you know, Christian leaders, Muslim leaders, you know, leaders from government, from schools. It could be a whole, like, you know, for lack of a better word, like an A team that's just kind of custom assembled, and you're part of that, right?
Right.
So each of us has, our own unique gifts. Doesn't matter, young, old, whatever background, whatever gender. And so the idea of the network is that, just like nutrients flow through our bodies to wherever they're needed the most, people can flow through the network to where they're needed the most. So the intelligence is not so much in an individual anymore, but it's in a whole room. See, right now there's a collective intelligence right here. And all I have to do is glance at my sister, Jackie, and I can know what she's feeling, right? Jackie and I were separated at birth, we discovered. So I can just glance at her and I just know. And this is very important because she is the divine feminine in the house, whose face I can see. Other women are here, but their cameras are off. So important. I can just boom, just glance over. Anyway, I don't want to hog the microphone, but just to share that this is a really rich, environment in which to co-create a new culture, and even test out culture, right? And then eventually bring it to the real world or whatever. But anyway, just wanted to share that with you and really welcome you to our network, Rohan, and would love to have you here. And the basic idea of the Collective Intelligence Block Party goes for 24 hours every Friday, Saturday. We start at 6 in the morning, Friday morning, go the full 24 hours. And then on Tuesdays, we meet from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. in the Solution Club. Both those meetings are up on radish.org. And then we're also expanding our network of conversations. So, for example, now this evening, this room will be starting at 6 p.m. or 5:45 will become the after party for the harmonic convergence events that have been happening. And you're welcome to stay for those, right? And every evening and through Tuesday will be harmonic convergence after party. So we're expanding and expanding with a view to creating the biggest possible tent that all of humanity can come under, right? And all of us, work together and really co-create this network and the culture.
And
right?
that is awesome. We can't go back to pre-COVID pandemic. We can't go back there. It's a perfect opportunity for us to see that the state of mind that we're in was not healthy for the planet. It's up to us to chart a new course, and you start it in your mind. Everyone has to say, am I gonna go back to all that stressful situation? Not only that, we have 40 plus million people out of work. Many of those businesses are not gonna survive what's going on. So it's incumbent on each and every individual to realize that going forward, the system that doesn't work can't come forward with us. So I love the energy that you guys are bringing. I hope everyone who participate is able to bring something to the fore where we don't go back. I did not like what was existing before. It was stressful. When I was in the corporate world, doing 12, 15-hour days, coming home with pain across my back, pain in my heart, you can't go back to that. I would come into the office and see guys with bloodshot eyes, and they'd point to the floor and says, "That's where I slept last night." We can't go back to those kind of lifestyle. It's not healthy. We're destroying ourselves and we're destroying the planet. So we got to find more sustainable ways where we minimize or keep our stress levels to the lowest possible limit, and we can stay healthy. We got to build a strong immune system because these infections are, as they say, affecting quite a bit of people. Some are dying, so we got to figure out ways of keeping our body strong and healthy, so we can achieve our max potential, basically. So achieve your max potential and let the next generation take it to the next level.
Thank you. I have a question, and then BJ, one of our wonderful members of the community, has a question for you.
Sure.
And You've introduced so many beautiful, amazing topics that we can just kind of explore. So I really want to extend the invitation. If you would be we would be so honored if you could come back again and
Sure.
further explore the myriad of topics that you brought up. So thank you.
Sure.
We had a meeting the other day where we were discussing health in this time, and I'd like to invite you to share with everyone what your definition of health is. I grew up with the definition of health being the absence of disease.
Mm.
Can you help us understand what is a true definition of health?
Well, if you look at the word disease, it breaks down into two words, dis-ease. So whenever you're not at ease, you are dis-ease. Health is the state of being where you are in alignment with nature, where your sustenance comes from nature without any pollution, no GMOs, no pesticides. So we have been taken off the farms and we've been put into cities. And that's something that has negatively impacted our health because of the cramped space, the pollutions, and now we're at the big 10 corporations that provide factory food to the masses. You know you're in health when you're eating from your own garden. Even if you do animals as part of your diet, you should be growing them yourselves. That way you know what they're being fed, what they're being injected with. Every time you take a bite from a piece of chicken today, several times a day, tomorrow, you're getting a new dose of vaccination because every animal is vaccinated. Every animal is biosecured. So they get multiple injections for biosecurity because a pandemic in their closed environment can literally wipe a farmer out. So these are the hormones, the antibiotics, the vaccines that we're getting put into our food that becomes a part of our system that causes a lot of problems. And so for me, health is being in alignment again with nature, eating whole foods, eating foods that you produce or if you can't produce it, go find a farmer's market, or go do a community garden here in Phoenix. Melvin has Spaces of Opportunity, and there's another gentleman who's there at Space of Opportunity that runs another foundation called Tiger Mountain Foundation. He has another garden at 19th and Broadway, 19th Place. And I think he rents his lots out for like $5 a month. You get a 5-foot by 50-foot area to go and grow your food. Not only do you benefit from the food that is produced, you benefit from being outside. You benefit from being in the sun where our cholesterol is converted to vitamin D. Most people who avoid the sun are vitamin D deficient. We got to go interact with the elements of nature, the earth, the air, the water, and the sun. These are the 4 elements that constitute nature. And we got to learn how to harmonize with that. When you are in harmony with that, you're healthy, in my opinion, or on the path to being healthy.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'd like to invite BJ to ask her question.
Thank you. And thank you so much. I've really enjoyed your talking,
Thanks.
Owen. I was thinking about the martial arts that you were doing, and I was thinking about it in terms of body, mind, spirit sort of thing. And then we kind of went into health, and I'm wondering now, I'm thinking about it particularly for me and many others who I'm around the computer a lot, and the times are changing. And if you could speak a little bit more about why you picked martial arts, or just anything you'd like to share about martial arts and nature health.
Okay. Very good question. Your name is?
BJ.
BJ. Very good question, BJ. If you remember the four major components I mentioned of culture: language, law, art, you can subdivide art into many different categories. In the ancient culture of Kemet, you had the 7 liberal arts: mathematics, language. So that's one category for education. You also had the yoga art, which is actually yoga, which is yoking you back to your younger self. The yoga, the Tai Chi, which is the highest form of combat art, and the martial art are all the same system. Okay. In our culture, we divide them for commercial purposes, but the martial art is yoga in action. The Kemetic martial art is yoga in action. Tai Chi is doing the martial art very slowly. So now you're working with your body, your mind, and your spirit, which is your breath. So it's breath control. You're working your body, so you're activating your brain, your mind. Whatever we do on the right side, which is left brain, we do on the left side, which is the right brain. So when you're doing Tai Chi, you're doing meditation in motion. And you are literally developing neural pathways in the brain that have been calcified or dormant or have not been utilized at all throughout your lifetime. And so you're synchronizing the operation of the right brain and the left brain while you're awake. Remember, they tell us that our right brain is mostly unconscious and asleep and comes alive when we go to bed, where we dream. But when you're doing the martial art and you're synchronizing the right side of the body and the left side of the body, therefore you're doing the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain while you're awake, you're developing the entire brain.
Thank you so much.
You are very welcome.
I've had really one full class with Kawasi doing the Tai Chi. And the day after, usually when I get up in the morning, I have moderate to severe stiffness through my body. But as I get moving, most people wouldn't notice it. But when I woke up this morning and we were at the park yesterday and we did some stretching and then some movement, and what Kawasi taught me, that Tai Chi means meditation in motion. Yeah, it's meditation, because I was telling him it's hard for me to just sit and meditate, do meditation. A million thoughts come to my mind and I just get discomfort. But I said, well, I could do it when I'm doing Tai Chi. And he explained to me that Tai Chi means meditation in motion. And when I woke up this morning after just doing the motion, I kid you not, 50% of the stiffness was gone from my body. And I felt a lot more energy. So I'm just saying this here. It kind of for you, BJ, because you're at the computer a lot. Um, you know, if you can start some type of motion, just with some Tai Chi, with some, it would help you a lot. Like he was saying, it works the right brain and the left brain. And I found that to be so helpful. And could you also speak again to the holistic aspect of the martial arts?
So all the aspect of art and the whole aspect of culture is to take you to your maximum potential. So we break these things apart and into different segments, you know, for illustration purposes. But it's a whole, there's a holistic aspect to all of this. You know, when we practice the entirety of culture, the martial artist may look like a gentleman who can fight and destroy you, but the person who can destroy you should also be able to heal you. And so actually the most deadliest person in any culture is the doctor because he knows what it takes to take your life. So when you look at all aspects of the art, whether it be the yoga, the Tai Chi, the liberal arts, the martial arts, food preparation, the clothing, the actual art itself, whether it be architecture, mask making, carvings, woodworking, all of this requires you to master a craft. In the African culture, as you go through the cycles of initiation, you may find yourself pulled towards doing food. You may find yourself pulled towards doing drumming. You may find yourself pulled towards doing the dance. You may find yourself pulled toward doing some, you know, carving, painting, whatever. You'll be associated with, and as an apprentice to a master in that aspect of the art, a master chef, a master drummer, a master of the martial art, a master of whatever the aspect is that you're fascinated with. And as an apprentice now, you will have the time, spend the time and the energy with that master. And it may take 10, may take 20, may take 40 years. But when all is said and done, you will become a master of the craft. And that's the holistic aspect of it. When you do it all, then you know there is no part of your culture that you're not involved with. You know you're doing it, and that's the holistic nature of it all. In doing the art, the drummers who do drumming, you'll find that they pay a price. They get calluses on their hands. But when they play, the sound they make on that drum is just music to your ears. You know, I met one master drummer, there was so much calluses, you could literally look underneath it. You know, I met him 20 years later, 17 years later, and he had taken care of his hands. So it did, you know, it had become soft again. But when I met him, this was just a layer of skin that lifted up and was solid. He couldn't go past here if he tried to bend his hand. And the drum, when I tried to play the drum, the first couple of years, because it took that much energy and time to get a certain sound out of the drum for me, my finger would swell twice as large on the weekends. And so by the time I went back to work, I'd be typing with 2 fingers like this because I couldn't pass here. 20 years later, I can play and I can form a fist. You find a dancer and she will flow with the rhythm and the music like an angel. But you look under her feet and you see callus. So when you're becoming a master of your craft, it demands something from you. You got to be willing to give up something to get to that level of wholesomeness. It requires discipline. It requires time. It requires patience, and knowing that, you know, it's not going to come overnight. This is something that you're going to have to become part of your lifestyle, that you're going to have to incorporate within you, and chart a course that I'm going to do the, you know, there's a university of knowledge to be learned in whatever it is that you choose to learn. That's what I've found. You know, in the drumming, for example, I love playing the djembe, and I played for like 10 years before I went to the other sets of drums. And I should have started on the other set first. But then that's not all. You don't just learn how to play the drums, you got to learn the songs, and you got to learn how to sing while you're playing. And then you got to learn to dance. I haven't even touched the song and the dance in any of those rhythms yet. So there is so much to learn when you decide to take on the wholesomeness and the holistic nature of your culture.
I have a question about when you were discussing how when we embrace these technologies, that we actually become younger, that we actually we have the ability to affect our bodies and reverse that aging process. Can you help us understand that technology and what's actually happening within our bodies?
Okay. In 1996, I did my first detox and cleanse. It was a pretty intense detox. I actually do not try to share this with a lot of people because it's very intense. However, when at the end of that 10 days, at the end of the 10 days, I noticed a wound that I had. I got a wound on the front of my hip, playing soccer on gravel. So I fell and the gravel dug into my skin. And that was around 1977. In 1987, I was playing soccer again. So, you know, I'm a soccer fanatic. A 200-pound person wrapped himself around my ankle and sat on it. My ankle swelled this big. Put ice on it and so on, and, you know, took care of it then. In 1996, almost 10 years later, so first wound on my hip in 77, the next, my ankle in 87, and here I am cleansing my body almost 97, so almost 10 years apart. The first detox I did, the wound on my hip scabbed over as if it was a fresh heel. And that's what I said. Wow. And I said, well, the gentleman who had given me the cleanse said, your body, if you had any issues in the past, your body will have the energy to go back and address them, especially if you took medication and didn't allow the body to heal properly. And so to see my wound of almost 20 years on my side scabbed over and re-heal itself again was amazing. The following year, I did the cleanse again, and I was at work because by now I could handle going to work while I'm cleansing. Usually it's not recommended. I was at work and I'm walking down the corridor and my ankle is hurting. And I'm like, what happened to my ankle? I didn't hurt it. I didn't, you know, I didn't hurt it recently or anything like that. Why is my ankle swelling up and hurting again? And then it clicked in my brain that my body was now healing my ankle from the wound 10 years prior. So when you put the right amount of water and the right amount of nutrients back into the body, you're giving it the live fuel that it'll utilize to replace, because the body do not repair cells, the body replaces them. So when a cell goes bad, it just kicks it up and replaces them. We lose about 1 trillion cells a day. So the body just keep replacing them. And if you could put the proper nutrients in, then the body will build the new cell using the better nutrients. That reminds me, I didn't address the amaranth plant that Melvin had mentioned. So the amaranth plant in Arizona grows wild. And Melvin was just chopping them out and throwing them away. And then he mentioned there was a lady friend of his who came by and was picking them all up. And he was like, what are you going to do with that? And she said, well, in our country, we use this for food. It's the amaranth. In Jamaica, we call it the Callaloo Plan. It's a staple diet in Jamaica. It runs second to our national food. You know, so on the weekends, if you're not having the national food, which is ackee and codfish, you're having Callaloo. Or, well, you know, so it's the amaranth. And there are many varieties of it. Some have a green on top and a red undercover, or it's just green on both sides. It's a very nutritious plant. It's a very simple plant to cook. Don't do too much of it. It will give you the runs. But a staple, it's a staple that grows wild here in Arizona. Another nutritious plant is the moringa plant. One of the most nutritious plants in terms of the quantity of nutrients that it provides the body. So, you know, we always think of vitamin C and the oranges. Well, this will have 10 times the amount of vitamin C that an orange has, or 10 times the amount of vitamin A that you get through a carrot. The moringa plant is an incredible plant, Moringa oleifera. So when it comes on to the body and the experiences of healing that I have encountered, it's just been fascinating. Your acne clears up, your skin looks better, the wrinkles under the eye goes away. I'm actually doing water with aloe vera in it now. And I think I'm getting my black hair back and these gray hairs are going back. So we'll see how that turns out.
We are getting close to closing for this session because we do have another one. I really want to invite you to come back and please let's explore some more of these topics. You're fascinating. We do have a few minutes left if everyone has a final question, or I'd like to leave the closing to Melvin and Rohan to close out our session. So Melvin, the last few minutes.
Does anyone else have a final question? Okay.
I just want to say that was really fascinating, and thank you very much for sharing. It's unbelievable. It's also just striking to me how like the natural world, like things show up in your garden that are meant for you, and you know, it's like it just appears, which is just a tremendous thing too. Thank you very much. That was awesome.
You're most welcome.
I have a question.
Yes.
Sobriety, that health that's required for the truth you just expressed requires sobriety, right? What's more important than sobriety so that whole experience is sustainable?
Did you say sobriety or did you say variety?
Sobriety.
Sobriety. That's
Is there a discipline? If there's a discipline that's more important than sobriety to complete, that health and that we need.
okay. For somebody who has been doing things based on the norm, the South American diet, as some people call it, the discipline is at a low point. The sobriety comes as you engage more and more and more of doing, going through a process of improving your health. So the typical person out there would be in a state of drunkenness, in my opinion. But say, for example, the light bulb goes off for that person. There is a process. There is a process of learning how to improve your diet. Don't just go out there and start all of a sudden. You know, one of the things that for adults, you need 4 of these a day in Arizona to stay hydrated. Most people don't drink a gallon of water a day, but don't go out and try it tomorrow. Take your time. It took me 2 years to drink 32 ounce every morning consistently. So start, get a canning jar, get the best water you can afford. And when you wake up, your goal is to work on trying to get that 32 ounce down, and take your time, take as long as you want. Keeping in mind that as you increase your water intake, you got to have access to a restroom area. So if you're on the train, you got to be careful how much water you drink. If you're stuck in traffic, you got to be careful that you have access to some place to relieve yourself. So if you're a teacher and you can't leave the classroom, you can't drink this much water when you gotta stay there in front of the students and you gotta go to the bathroom, because when you increase your water intake, you can't hold it. When I was at work, every 15 minutes I had to go. So that's understanding your body and understanding the process. For somebody who wants a change, I usually don't take anybody or recommend that anybody do anything drastic other than dairy products. That's the only thing I ask. I recommend that a person who wants my assistance is to remove dairy products immediately from your diet, because it's the most constipating of all foods. And
for a soldier, for the health of a soldier, is sobriety more important than chastity?
I would like to comment on that, on sobriety.
Okay.
And sobriety is not a destination, it's a journey. And it's something that we grow into, that we learn to live, to where it's not a struggle. As long as it's a struggle, you're still at a place where you really haven't made a decision and a commitment to live a healthy lifestyle. So just remember that sobriety is not a destination, it's really a journey.
I can tell you this, after my first cleanse, my mental capacity quadrupled. And after every succeeding cleanse that I did, I had more and more capacity of mental sobriety. So as Melvin pointed out, it's a journey, so as you get more healthy, your sobriety will grow with you.
I'd like to add another word to that sobriety is clarity.
Exactly.
You know, to expand the language of it is clarity. And with more clarity, that's when we really start making the decisions and choice to live in a way that we're not engaging in behaviors and thought that is really harmful to us and to those around us and to the environment when we have clarity. And I've done some fasting, and each time I fast, the outcome was incredibly beneficial. I want to thank Brother Kawese for sharing his story and his wisdom and his knowledge with us about healing in the martial arts. And I want to encourage everyone to find a place where you can do some soft martial arts, some Tai Chi, something like that. Because as he explained to me, it is a form martial art that's really fitting for people my age.
Yes.
Very, very fitting, and I can speak to that. Once again, thank you, Brother Kawese.
Thank you. Thank you so much for honoring us. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. And thank you for accepting our invitation to come back. We're so honored.
Yes. Let me know when, and what time, and you got my email. So.
And Brother Rohan, and first of all, thank you. This has just been, I just love listening to you. I could listen to you all day long and converse with you. So I just wanted to say both to you and to other visitors here to the block party, especially first-time visitors, that this is a very open, totally open, and it's also the first certified compassionate network of conversations, to my knowledge. And that's what we take the most seriously. This is a compassionate, radically inclusive space, totally safe, totally open. Feel free to come and go as you please. Even if it's just like 10 minutes, you just want to pop in. We do this for 24 hours every Friday, Saturday. All the information is up on radish.org, radish.org. I'll type it in the chat real quick. And, you know, we cover lots of different topics. And for example, in the next few minutes, here, I'll just stop the recording on this one, unless Jackie or Melvin or Brother Ron anymore. Okay, good. I'll pause recording. All right, thanks so much.